and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I will be your host for this evening. And tonight is going to be, it's a getting to know you show, because I get designers on the show, and it's, a lot of the time we just like to get other content creators on the show so we can have a chat and find out a little bit about their kind of, I guess, deep and mysterious past. So a little while, don't run away now, you're caught in my web. So a little while ago I started listening to a podcast called Board Games in Bed, and it was by two ladies, a lady by the name of Kelly and a lady by the name of Becky. So they're joining me this evening because we're going to have a little chat. So good evening, ladies. How are you?
Yeah,
very good. Yeah.
Oh, it's good to have you on. As I say, I'm delighted you accepted my invitation without kind of prior knowledge of any questions that I could potentially ask you this evening, and you'd be wondering what you've let yourself kind of in for. But we shall see how we go. Because you've back from your holiday quite recently.
Yeah.
It already feels a long time ago.
Yeah, forever ago.
Yeah.
back to.
Because that was like your honeymoon.
Yes, yeah. We went off around America, so that's quite nice. But now we're back and everything's back to normal.
Normal routine, normal jobs, normal chores. But that's why we have to keep going back to the pictures and the videos to remind ourselves.
How many times are you kind of looking at the videos and the pictures? Is it still a kind of just a quick every night thing?
Well, Becky's actually trying to edit together a holiday video.
Yeah, we had all the enthusiasm when we first got back, and we were doing it every night. And then, we've not touched it in a couple of weeks. So that'll probably take about a year to do.
I know. And the worst thing about it is that you'll be like, "Oh, I wish we could go on holiday again," and then Facebook's going to remind you of all the fun times that you have.
Yeah. And
it's going to remind you like every day for like a fortnight of all the things you were doing and you were up to, and you're going to be like, damn you, Facebook. It's going to be so long. For people that are joining us for the first time, I suppose I better say hello to the people that are listening. Hello, people that are listening. The reason that we do this is quite simple. We just fundamentally believe that there's simply not enough podcasts out there about board games. And the other reason that we do this, as I said, is we like to get other people that are doing as good a job as we are, and in this case probably a better job than we are, because they talk about board games, but they talk about it when they're in bed, so that's even better. So they're nice and warm and cozy.
That's the prime time to talk about board games.
Just you kind of get that duvet warmness. But I have obviously got a couple of questions about how you manage to. Do you have like one of those tables? You know, like you have in a hospital kind of table that comes over the top of the bed to play? Or?
We don't. When we first started recording, we actually were just doing it on my phone, like with a couple of mics on my phone. So that was very low key. And then I bought a fancy new microphone, and much to Kelly's dismay, I keep trying to attach it to the bed using various different like metal arms, and I've scratched all the wall up trying to do that. So yeah, we're still working on the best system.
So professional, aren't we?
Just the logistics and the technical side of things. You've kind of ruined the magic. You could have said yes we do. We actually have
a tray. Yeah, that would be better. Like, we do need a better setup, but
that would be great. Actually, we could then actually play games instead of just talking about them.
Get one of those trays that's got like half beanbag underneath.
Oh, yeah,
we have got a few of those kicking around. We should.
Then we could do a live episode where we're actually playing games at the same time.
We're not doing a live episode.
Oh my goodness,
that's way in the future for us.
So, one of the things we like to do on the show is we like to find out a little bit about your histories with a hobby. So, as we say, we like to have a little peek back at the past. We like to have a little focus on the present before we kind of jet off to the future. So, just out of interest, has your love of cardboard, has that kind of had any bearing on how you guys kind of got together and stuff like that, or has it kind of, what's your kind of your history with it?
Well, it was actually something we kind of got into together. Like,
neither of us were into a board gamer before
No.
we got together, were we? And
We played it. I had a few friends that had a few games, things like Talisman and Flux and stuff like that. But as they were enjoyable to play, and we did play them occasionally. But I wouldn't say that really got us into the hobby. But yeah, like I guess after we've been together a couple of years,
I suppose we were kind of looking for a hobby that we could share together, because we had a lot of interest, but nothing we were both equally as into. I think probably you were the one that kind of found the board gaming hobby for us, though, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, we bought a friend. What game was it? Oh, Forbidden Island. For a birthday, just because we were kind of a little bit like, we liked different board games, but like we didn't know the full extent of everything that was out there. So we came across Forbidden Island, bought that for him, played it with him, and then we were like, we really like this, let's get something similar. And then we found Pandemic, and then we played Pandemic over and over and over again. And then we started sort of finding out more, that there was more games, and sort of discovered Board Game Geek and stuff like that.
That's when you started kind of probably, I suppose, looking on the internet more and looking up more of the reviews, and that's how we went from one game to another, really.
Yeah. And then, just kind of snowballed from there.
Is Pandemic becoming like the monopoly of new age board games? Because I think I always say it's like, the first thing is, well, when I was young, I remember playing Monopoly with the family and having some fantastic arguments, and then I went away for a bit, and then there's always some kind of hysteresis, and then we ended up hiding out in a bunker, and one of my mates had Pandemic, and that's what got us into the board game, and it just seems to crop up again and again and again. It even seems to crop up more than Settlers of Catan.
Yeah, I think because we did actually have Settlers of Catan before Pandemic, but again, it just didn't really grab us in the same way that Pandemic did. I suppose that there's that, like, Ticket to Ride's another one, isn't it? Like, a lot of people get into the hobby through that, and you really like Carcassonne as well. That's the other one I think of when I think of, like,
I think the difference between having Catan and Pandemic was the cooperative game that we could play together, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think probably what really sold it and won us onto board games.
Yeah, it was nice having that puzzle to solve together. We did, after we got it, we just literally set it up every night and tried to until we beat it and played it back to back.
Because it's a total puzzle. Okay, so between the two of you, do you have like a quarterback in the house? Do you have somebody that's kind of like takes over the games?
Not so much with Pandemic, but I'd say
in other games maybe a bit more, but I'd say we're fairly equal with Pandemic, aren't we?
I think, Pandemic we don't, but certainly other games I have been known to be a little bit bossy when it comes to these things. But usually because I'm the one that's learned the rules, so I'm like explaining it and putting it through, but I can be a bit...
You do tend to have a quicker grasp of the game, so especially when we're first learning the game, we do generally lean on you a little bit more anyway, don't we? So, and look for your guidance in games.
But yeah, I think as a couple, we're a bit of a nightmare to play Pandemic with. We've got one friend who has played all the games with us, or not, played all of Pandemic with us, and the Legacy version, game. That's it. And she's like just as bossy as us at it. So the three of us playing together are fine, but if we play with anyone else, it's just a disaster, and they just like get left out, and they might as well not be there, basically.
Who's your go-to characters in kind of like vanilla Pandemic? Do you have? We
always tend to do it random, but if we draw the quarantine expert, then we're just like, contingency planner. There's always a groan if someone's the contingency planner, but
we do very much have the go-to. We always go scientist,
medic,
is it operations expert?
Yeah, that's our dream team. Yeah. When we get those characters, we're happy. But yeah, we try and do it random. But
more as a challenge to ourselves. It's kind of like, because we've played so many now, if we want to like make it a bit harder, is the epidemics, or pick some characters we wouldn't normally play with, and that's what makes it a bit more difficult for us.
Yeah,
it depends on the mood of the time, doesn't it? Because sometimes I don't like to play Pandemic because I'm thinking I'm potentially going to lose this. I can scrape by in other games and I don't mind it, but Pandemic is so utterly cruel. Sometimes you think, yep, just I'll just go into Atlanta and no, everybody's now dead. It's fantastic. Thanks for that. Do you have? Would you say you've got kind of differing game tastes between the two of you? Is there kind of like, are you kind of like a, is Becky like a Euro? Kelly like sort of Ameritrash? I mean, are you both a big fan of worker placement? I mean, do you have kind of differences in your main tastes that you like to play?
I would say our main tastes would because we mostly play the games where our tastes overlap, it doesn't feel too different. Like there's certainly games that I like, a few heavier games that I like that Kelly is less interested in, and similarly there's some games that you don't like, the higher sort of random ones.
Or the flip side, there's a few more lighter games that I probably prefer that you are less keen on.
Yeah.
I think I tend to like a worker placement game, whereas I don't think that's as high on your list.
I like a worker placement game.
You like every type of game, to be fair. You just have different levels of like.
Yeah. But,
I just feel like I'm tripping around the marriage kind of minefield at the moment. This area, this worker placement area looks fine. Oh no, he's lost an arm. But I mean, how are you big buyers? I mean, because you do get some people that say, right, I'm gonna keep myself to one game a month. Are you generally always kind of regularly picking up and playing games? Because what you say in your podcast is, you correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you get a loan of a lot of games from places.
Not that many, really. We do try and we try and go to like board game cafes and stuff, although there is none in Norfolk. Like we have to travel quite far to get to one. But yeah,
we have a number of friends who are into the hobby, so we tend not to buy stuff we know other people have got. So we do a fair bit of sort of sharing round amongst our kind of board gaming friendship group, and play games that way rather than having to buy them. But I think we've still got we've got a reasonable collection, I suppose, and we're still working through those in terms of what we've talked about on the podcast.
Yeah, on the podcast, we're sort of like, it's making us play some of our like older games that we'd maybe not. Yeah, so we might be like, oh, what should we play? And we'll be like, well, we've not talked about this on the podcast. Let's get that out for a game. So it has been quite good for making us play some of our older games. But yeah, I think if I was left to my own devices, we'd buy a lot more games than what we do. But...
You would definitely have one a month, wouldn't you? But this is something I think we talked about one of the podcasts. Like, I'm the one that very much restricts and monitors our board gaming purchases. And it's kind of the weighing up. It's not always just the cost as well; it's the space.
I'd say that's a bigger concern. We've not got the biggest house.
No, I think it's amazing how much your house becomes a TARDIS when you start to bring in the cardboard. You go, do you know what? You can actually, and you measure furniture by what you can fit in. That's that definitely, I don't know about you, but that definitely looks like a potential. That's a Carcassonne size box. That is. Where is this?
We're lucky enough that Kelly's dad's a builder, so he was able to build us some shelves in our alcoves, and we've spaced them like box height apart, so we can fit them all in, like as many in as neatly as possible. But it was going to be one side of the alcoves was for the board games and the other side was for books, and then
slowly the board games are creeping over into the book side.
It started off like we were like, oh well, then the party games aren't the proper games; they can go on the other side with the books, and then
exactly. Do you need your signed first edition Philip Pullman his Dark Materials trilogy? No.
It's like photo albums; they're first to go. They're now up in boxes.
Yeah. Don't need them anymore. So I think
I know
we're like looking around the house, like where can we fit a bookshelf? Like
it's either that or say you don't like your shoes, do you? You don't really. You only need 2 pairs of shoes. You don't need all these shoes. You don't need these covered shoes.
Kelly's nodding enthusiastically, but not because of making more space for board games, just because she thinks I've got too many shoes.
Get rid of shoes as well.
It's when you're googling how to dry proof a shed. Because I've seen it. I've seen these guys that have got like their, here's my built the new kind of man cave extension, and what they've done is they've done the old garage conversion which you get nowadays, and what they've done is they've emptied everything out and they've completely filled it up with Kallax kind of shelving instead, and you're just like, you're either meant to have a train track going on here, or you're meant to have a vintage car. And he's like, that, no, look.
Yeah, my parents have recently built like a big shed.
Summer house.
It's a summer house, I call it, a shed to wind them up down the bottom of their garden. And I'm like, oh, could we get one of those for our house?
Yeah,
that would be
pretty cosy. Yeah, there's a lot of space here, bigger than our living room.
Could we have a summer place for the board games? Could you have summer board games? This is and what would you keep there? This is we've got Tokaido there, and we've got viticulture. Or well, sometimes we bring viticulture into our house because it is a summer as well as a winter game, depending on how you get it play it. Do you, and kind of like in. I mean, how many games have you got? Are you getting to the point where it is kind of like 40, 50,
We're
60?
About 110, maybe 120. I think that's where we're at the moment.
I would have guessed somewhere around that. That's for everything from the really little box games, isn't it, to the big box.
Yeah, I think that's roughly where we're at. But I think realistically, like, that's a good enough size collection to make sure everything does get played at least once a year. That's my goal, that everything gets played at least once a year. And then if it doesn't, then we look at it and think, do we still really need this in our house?
Because you're fairly prolific. I mean, on the podcast, there's not a week goes by. It's not like, I mean, even if you're saying, well, we had a really, really slow week this week. We only managed to play, 15 games this week or something like that. It's even when you came back, we were doing your trip to America. And I'm going to plug this now and say, if you're not listening to board games in bed, then what are you? Pause the podcast right now, exit out this podcast, go into your search facility bit and go and search it, because they do a lot more interesting stuff than what we're talking. It's like talking about on the plane, saying, oh, what kind of games could we get going on? And it was the fact that you'd even managed to plan that out. I'm just sitting there going, what am I doing?
That was the top of your list, wasn't it? Things to do for holiday. What games can we take? What games can we play on the plane?
Yeah, I think less got played than what I intended, but I mean, we did have an amazing time. That's why. But before we were leaving, I was like, even looking up, like, oh, are there any board game cafes in the places we're visiting? And Kelly's like, no, we're not going to any board game cafes. It's our honeymoon.
The funniest thing was, you're rating the rooms in the hotel based on whether or not you could actually play games or not. And you went, what about this hotel? It was okay. The one over here, we didn't like that because they only had one table that you could only fit a single board on, but the one on here, and you're not actually mentioning like, oh yeah, well the food was rubbish. What you got? Oh, we got dry tacos and bread, and they threw water at us whenever we went past them. But the size of the table in that place was and it was a felt top, so the cards didn't even slip. And that's what it was. You'd had gone pure board gamer. When you were basing that. So what'd you get? Oh, well, we played less games than what we thought. It's like, you didn't actually say, this is what we actually did. It was more a case of, we didn't play as many games as we thought we was, and we based it.
We do try and keep the board game podcast, like, we keep the podcast fairly board game focused, like, I don't know, we just assumed that people wouldn't be that interested in, like, our holiday tales, so we were like, right, we'll keep that focus. Like, even when we did an episode like the day after our wedding, and even then we only talked about stuff that was related to board games. Like, we didn't talk anything, or we tried not to talk too much about like the actual wedding. It was just, these are the elements of our wedding that related to board games. This is the bit you'll be interested in.
Was there a theme at the wedding?
It wasn't board games. It was like a village fete type thing. But we did have, we had lots of big outdoor games and stuff like that, and we had meeples on our cake and things like that. So it snuck in.
Yeah.
It snuck in. Do you getting people to actually roll a dice to decide which table they sat at?
No, but we did give all our guests a little secret mission that they had to complete.
I was only joking.
So on the back of their name place, they had to. Everyone had like a little secret thing that they had to do without anyone else realising what they were doing. So that was quite amusing.
Yeah,
but yeah, that had to sneak in. There was no way we couldn't do it, but we didn't want to make it all like. We were like super board gamey.
So, well, it's your wedding, so you could have done what you wanted. Really.
I mean, we had plenty of board gamers there as well. Yeah. So, a lot of people would have appreciated the board gaming theme, touches. I think. Yeah, and all the little touches.
Just the little nods. Is there anything you're playing at the moment that you're finding a lot of fun just now?
We've been into Star Realms for a long time, but we've just sort of discovered the app. And that is we're just playing that constantly, pretty much, on our iPhones at work and stuff like that. So it's definitely still Star Realms.
Actual board games, though, I think we've played Biblios quite a bit just recently, haven't we?
Yeah.
Because we've been trying that out with some different people. Like we've played with family just recently, and some like our lunchtime board gaming groups and different friends and that. We've been trying that out, haven't we?
Yeah. Yeah, that's been making the rounds.
But yeah, we need to get into a few more of the bigger games. Like we did just recently play Dead of Winter.
Yeah, we spent all Sunday doing that.
What did you think of that then?
Oh, that was good. It was grueling, but it was pretty good. Although Kelly thinks it was too easy for.
I think like I constantly find myself thinking, well, you must have played something wrong because it felt like it should have been harder. I suppose I was comparing it to when we played Battlestar Galactica, and sometimes you just feel like you're not getting a break and everything's going against you. Whereas I didn't feel that so much playing Dead of Winter. I felt like it was tough, but we were kind of just managing all the time rather than the game really like being brutal to us.
I think it helped that we didn't have a hidden betrayer like that. That made it a lot easier.
Oh yeah, I think that would have been the turning point on it, wouldn't it? But it was quite apparent quite early on that we were probably all good players, weren't we?
And it's the dice rolls as well, because I've seen people getting wiped out in Dead of Winter within the first like half hour, 45 minutes, just because everybody's rolled the dice incorrectly, got bitten, wiped out their characters, failed the mission, the morale's just dipped to zero, and everybody kind of goes home crying. But if you get a kind of a good run at it, especially if you get the dog.
Oh well, actually, we got really lucky on those because I think we only in the whole game, and we were playing like a 10-round full-on game. We only rolled one bite, I think, the whole time.
Yeah.
But so we were super lucky on those on the exposure dice rolls. But
yeah, and any other time though, like it could just go dramatically the other way, and it could just be wound, bite, or, and you suddenly find you've got like loads of characters have been killed off and morale's at one, and you don't know what you're going to do to get through the next round.
I know, especially if your morale's kind of getting really close to kind of like zero, and then you look at like kind of Santa Claus.
See, we were playing with the long night the long night version.
Oh right, yeah.
So we were playing with all the modules, and one of them you can like build improvements. So we'd built a DVD player. So every so often we were like throwing all the fuel into the DVD player and watching a film to cheer us all up. So I think we got a bit of morale back on that.
Yeah.
I wonder what you would watch. What are you watching the zombie apocalypse? No idea. I don't know. No idea.
We also had a generator playing Thriller for a couple of rounds, didn't we? So that was
to distract the zombies away.
It's only if you're standing up and dancing at the same time you've got kind of people to kind of worry about. Do you have the expansions? Because we glossed over Star Realms, and are you playing Star Realms online?
So we've been playing on the iPhones.
Yeah, I've played a few online games, and it's just proved to me that I'm nowhere near as good as what I thought. I want to go back to just playing the card copy with Becky, because then I had a fairly good win ratio. But I've been doing terrible online and playing actual other people other than Becky, so that's been a bit of a reality check for me.
See, I've been doing better online because Kelly normally has been beating me every time, but now I've been playing other people. I'm like, oh, this is what it feels like to actually win a game every now and then.
It's just like that. Oh yeah, okay, I'm just going to link all these up, and then no, I'm going to scrap that card. And then you go, well, you never, Kelly never scraps her card.
I've even been getting to the point where I've tried.
Have you got your scrapping card rule right now, though?
Oh, the bases. That was ridiculous. Yeah, that was quite embarrassing when our friend was just like, "What are you doing? Like, what are you doing with that base?" I was like, "Oh, we've only played 30 games of this. That's fine." Like.
I must admit to, if it is confession time, because I am not one, I cannot stand in front of you and laugh at you, because when I was first playing Star Realms with my son, what I used to do, it used to say scrap a card in the trade roll, yeah? What I used to do is, if we had the rule, because we were stupid, we used to have the rule that if you scrap that card in that row, you then automatically gain the scrapping power as well. So he went for rounds where my son was like saying, he was just wiping me out, because when he got that power, he was like scrapping the cards that were like doing 6, 10, draw another card damage. So I'm like that going, this game's rubbish. It's like that, beat you again. And it was only when it was, I think you mentioned it as well, it's only when you start playing the app that you realise that you're actually getting the rules either slightly incorrect, or you know what you're kind of doing. I play online. I've actually got a battle going at the moment with Sean from Thing 12 Games because we mentioned he was on the show talking about Dice of Pirates. And one of the 37 shows I put out a month. And and I says, I'll play you at Star Realms. And the next thing I know is like getting invites and stuff. So he's currently well and truly kicking my ass. So,
we'll have to get you on that afterwards then.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, definitely. I've no shame. I think there's a small list now of people that regularly just kind of come on to Star Realms when they're feeling a bit down and low and they need an easy win, and they just kind of challenge us. Do you? Oh, there you go. Do you? I should use a large speaker voice. What about Kickstarter? Do you guys are looking at your 110 board games? Do you ever say, do you know what we should do? Rather than go to a board games store and hand over some money, what we should do is we should hand over some money to somebody and then hopefully get something in 6 to 8 months or a year's time. Well,
we have kickstarted. Well, I say I've kickstarted a few games. Some of them, the earlier ones I kickstarted, was a bit of a loophole because Kelly sort of put me on a buying ban. Like, no more board games, we've got too many board games, you can't buy any. So what I started doing was kickstarting board games instead.
This was before I actually understood what Kickstarter was.
And then, like, these games would turn up like 6 to 8 months later, and Kelly would be like, what's this? You're not supposed to be buying any games. And then I'll be like, oh, it's got this Kickstarter.
Like, I bought that last year. Right, okay.
Exactly. I'm using the are you talking about the ban for this 6 months? Or the previous 6 months that didn't exist? Because as far as I was aware, I was fine with that one.
Yeah, I have to try and keep a mental check now of like what's on the Kickstarter list, don't I?
But I do Kickstarter. I'm not like some people. Like, I'll see some people kickstart like every game a week basicve. But
You're more selective.
Yeah, I'm quite selective, so I like to do a bit of research on it. But I've got a few kickstarted at the moment. I caved and kickstarted Rising Sun because I felt like I would miss out if I didn't do it. But now I'm like, oh, should I have done that? But it's done now.
There's nothing you can do, is there? I mean, once it's there, it's gone. I think, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at Kickstarter at the moment because obviously the people that would get on, and there's so many out there, but there's also so many of a really, really good quality. But there's also so many that are really, really expensive.
I think
you know.
I think what I've kind of made the call on some of those bigger games, this is what I should have done with Rising Sun, is I'm not, it's not the end of the world to me if I don't get all the Kickstarter exclusives and stuff like that. So I tend to think, like, if this is really going to be a good game, then it's going to come to retail, and then I'll get it when it's at retail and just miss out on those extra bits. But that made it really hard when Seventh Continent came out the other week, because they're like, this is never coming to retail, you need to get this. And I was like, I can't, it's too much money. So yeah, but for most games, I kind of trust that if it is really good, then it will make it to retail eventually, and then I can get it then. But yeah, every so often I get excited about one, and then I'll kickstart that.
I know, but it's just that continual thing is, what happens if I'm missing out on that, and it's really like the good best game ever kind of thing. But it's that kind of thing. I don't know, I just think there's a lot of games coming out, and it's really, really difficult to decide kind of between all of them, because there are ones that don't seem to get the fanfare that seem to be really, really good, and at the same time there's some of them that are like seem to be doing really, really well, and I'm like going, how's this doing really, really well? Is it just very, 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 very popular? I don't know. I saw that in the last Simon one, the Game of Thrones one, the Fire and Ice one. I was kind of like, I can see why people are going crazy for it, but I also can't see at all why people are going crazy for it when I can get kind of Warhammer instead for a much kind of cheaper price.
I kind of saw that one and I was like, oh, Game of Thrones, and then I was like, oh, it's a miniatures game, and that's not really our wheelhouse, so I was like, oh, I'm happy to let this one slide. If this, it's almost sometimes you like looking for, or I'm looking for excuses not to back something. I'm like, oh, it was like with Seventh Continent, like there was 10 million excellent reviews, and then there was one review that was like, oh well, some of the cards are a bit hard to read, and I was like, well, that's it, I can't back it.
It's a critical failure. It's getting critically panned by at least 0.7% of the reviewers out there. I definitely can. And then there was that guy that had 3 subscribers on YouTube, and he just went on a rant for 15 minutes saying how it was rubbish, because there's no way they could be a seventh continent. So that's another justification for kind of not doing it. Is there anything you're both kind of looking forward to, kind of at the moment, that's kind of coming out that you'd like to get your hands on?
Games wise, Kelly's looking at me. Is there anything you're thinking of?
Well, I was thinking like we're definitely going to be interested in getting the Pandemic Season 2.
Oh yes, yeah, definitely that.
I think we'll get that and be, because it's been quite a while and we haven't played a lot of Pandemic recently, so that'll be the kind of those pre-games up to it. So we'll probably play some of the regular game just to get heads back into it, and sort of get a feel for the game again before we play that. And I think we're also thinking of introducing a 4th person to our little sort of Pandemic legacy group, aren't we? So
we'll have to play some trial games with him and see how we get on.
See if he cuts it and gets
get a level of bossiness right, you said earlier.
Yeah, he might play one of the regular games with us and be like, no, I'm going back to my old group.
Well, he can be quite the rogue player at times as well, so it depends whether we like his kind of style in a cooperative game like that.
It's like, no, you can't cry. If you're going to cry, you can just get out. It'll be like the old late 1990s song. Now, I'm showing my age, but the game was it the film Shallow Grave, where Ewan McGregor first kind of got his break, and they're interviewing the flatmates and just ripping into them to see if they would break or not. So is it going to be kind of like that? Are you going to have trials, interviews? Is there going to be any kind of tests
definitely
involved,
a test.
that kind of thing?
Oh, definitely, yeah. If he wants in, I think trial games. He's particularly got a win over
I'm thinking maybe a presentation.
Well.
Yeah, he'll need a presentation to win over Charlene.
Yeah.
PowerPoint, get that out. Yeah.
You should just say just drop it in afterwards, an email 5 minutes before they come along, and you've got to do a bit in mime.
To be honest, I think he would rise to the challenge, because he's really into his improv. Like, we went and saw him, so he would. I think he would love that, to be honest.
Yeah.
give him a 5-minute scene on Pandemic, and he'd be fine.
Yeah, but then you say, no, that's fine, but you've now got to act out a role all the way through the rest of the game in order to kind of pass the test and see how you get on with that. Anything else that you're kind of looking at the moment that you've kind of,
The one of my Kickstarter ones I've been waiting for ages. It's the Fog of Love. I just want that to turn up, because I backed it ages ago because I thought it was a bit it looked a bit different and interesting, so I've backed that, and I've just been they release updates periodically, and I really want that game to turn up so I can play it and see what it's like.
You just want the one it's all the collection of letters and numbers and said, this is the reference for the boat, and this is where you can find the boat, and then you can press a button and it takes you to a little flag that tells you where the boat is on the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean or something like that, and you're like, yeah, there's the boat on my game. Like, yeah. I don't think there's anything more frustrating than that, than you saying, it starts off with, sorry for all the silence, guys.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, okay. So you couldn't write us a message then? No. You're too busy spending my money. Eh? Good at that. You're committed board gamers, but where'd you go from kind of saying, right, okay, let's play, get together, and play on a regular basis, to actually saying, do you know what? Let's record. I mean, who was the driving force that said, you know what? She was like, do you want to go to the park? Or do you want to go out and get ourselves some breakfast? No, let's record a podcast. I mean, that's
the obvious next step. Well, you always say, like, at the start of your episodes that I've listened to, like, oh, there's not enough podcasts out there, obviously, with in jest, but like, genuinely, before we started, like, I knew there was quite a few podcasts out there, but I didn't quite realise quite how many podcasts were out there. And it wasn't until we started, after we started the podcast, that's when I joined Twitter, and then I was like, oh my god, there's absolutely hundreds of podcasts out here. Maybe we should start. No, we've already started and bought some microphones. Let's keep going.
Committed.
But I think you were the one that was kind of keen to give it a go. But it was kind of a natural progression from the fact that we tend to have a lot of discussions about board games and the games we played anyway. And it was just like, I tell you what, we could just record it, and like it'd be easy. All we've got to do is just record our conversations that we have anyway. It's like, that would be an easy podcast to do. And I suppose that's why it's pretty much stayed quite casual, like it has, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's just us recording the kind of conversations we would have even if we wasn't creating a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what comes across, which is, I don't think it's really fresh, but it's the fact you are just sitting around having a natter about, it's almost like, let's catch up with Becky and Kelly been up to this week, and it's almost like you get onto like a kind of a sitcom kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Board Games in Bed, it's filmed before a live studio audience, and then it's just catching in and saying, oh, you just beat me on Star Realms again, haha, what are we going to play this? But it is kind of like the kind of, what I like about the show, and I'm going to sound like the world's biggest sycophant, is that first of all, I like the fact you don't go on for like an hour and a half like I do. Because you're fairly kind of, I mean, was that a conscious decision with the kind of the length of the episodes to keep them kind of like,
yeah, we want
30 minutes, 35
yeah,
minutes?
We always aim for half an hour and we never hit half an hour. And so I'll usually try and keep under 40 minutes. But yeah, for the main reason was just like time, like, because we record it in the morning and then put it out in the evening. So I need time to edit it and edit out all the ums and ers, and stuff like that. So it was mostly time that's kind of restricted that, but also just from listening to a lot of podcasts, I just find there are ones that are like 3 hours long, and I can't listen to that. An hour's all right. An hour is fine, but it's like when it gets to 3 hours, I'm like, no, I want to listen to something else now.
It's when you've got that set time and you're like, because that's what I do when I listen to when I go to work and I'm driving, so I'm commuting, so if it's a certain length, it's absolutely perfect, I can put it on, drive to work, and then not have to remember what they were talking about. And you do get kind of bigger ones that you can kind of split, kind of like down the middle. Do you? I mean, you bring in topics into your show. You actually talk about you bring in kind of set topics, and seen the latest one, episode 24, which is out just now. Sounds like it's really potentially very interesting.
It definitely is. Maybe I'm more heated.
Because it's about... Now, I don't want you to, start, having a little moment here, if you don't mind. But sportsmanship and board games.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it at that, because we're just going to say, listen, as I said again, if you haven't checked out the show, then go and check out the show. Because apparently, it looks like this one is a doozy.
I also need to check out our own podcast this week.
You get to check out which bits were edited.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, who edits the show?
That's usually me. So Kelly puts a lot of trust in me, and sometimes she'll be in the other room and shout through like, "You're not cutting that bit, are you?" Or like.
But yeah, I very rarely listen to them back, so I'm never 100% sure what bits you've cut. Like, our friends were joking this week based on what the topic was going to be, and saying like, "Oh, you should listen back. Becky might like cut that, so it makes it sound like you're agreeing to things you didn't mean to agree to." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'd never thought about that."
Oh dear, it's like the I am going to sound old, but there's a sketch on the Fast Show where there's the couple kind of having the disagreement. And then they go, well, let's check the tape, shall we? And they go up to a cupboard, and they open it up, and it's just full of tapes of all the conversations that they have to the day. And they take the tape out and they put it in the machine. And then it's like, we'll find out who said they were going to go to the shops then, shall we? And then it's like, they play it, and it's like the other person is dubbed over that person saying the right thing. So basically what we're saying here is that the final version of this latest episode might not entirely be what you kind of expected it to be.
Yeah, I'll definitely be listening. If comments start popping up from me, then that'll be the sign that maybe it wasn't what I was expecting it to sound like.
You gotta watch out, because all you know is there's a section on the PC which has just got sound bites of things that have been recorded. You go back and say, I didn't say that. Oh, I think you'll find you did. Look at it this way. But yeah, as I say, you brought up your topics. I mean, is it just whatever kind of springs to mind? Do you kind of like a little bit of planning? Have you got like a timetable on what you want to cover, or is it just, well, it'd be nice to kind of chat about this week?
I think Becky always has like a few topics for the future in mind, but there is an element of it where something that we do in the week, say we're playing a game, something might kind of spur an idea for a topic. I think that particularly like, so this week here there was a couple of occasions where we were like, oh, I know what we could do this week. But you've always kind of got like a couple in the bag for if we need something.
Yeah, like backup ones. But yeah, it is very much driven by sort of anything that's happened in the week. We'll be like, oh, that might make a good topic. We'll talk about this week.
Yeah.
And then there's the odd week where we get to Friday and we're like, oh God, we've got nothing to talk about. Like, quickly play some games. But
we've had friends that have we play games with sort of a similar group of friends every week, and sometimes they give us ideas for like the topics, don't they, and sort of say, oh, you know what you should do, you should talk about this. And I'm like,
there's certainly no master plan. It's just kind of what pops up in the week.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously not like me, who had to have sent you meticulous show notes with a list of questions to follow. No, sorry. That's wrong podcast. I mean, are you kind of thinking about branching out then? Is it going to be, you going to start getting guests on? Are you thinking, is there going to be unboxing videos? Stuff like that? I don't
know about videos. Like, that's where before we ever talked about podcasts, we always used to joke about doing a YouTube like channel or something like that. But to be honest, I really like editing audios, fiddly enough. Like, I don't really want to get into editing videos.
No.
But yeah, I don't know about I'd like to do interviews, but I'm just, as you've seen, I'm not very good with Skype and setting things up on Skype. So I think I'd have to learn a bit more about that, get a bit better equipment for doing that.
That's not true at all. And I'm going to edit that bit out with my collection of sound bites that I have kind of somewhere else. I think if you've got it's the difference between, it's almost like you feel sometimes obliged to do something new to attract different people, but then sometimes you forget that the reason that you're getting people downloading the show in the first time is because of the way you were doing stuff originally. So I see people kind of changing formats and trying new things, and it's a dangerous kind of thing. I personally have a face for podcasting. I think if I ever actually put myself on YouTube, I would probably, they would do one of those takedown things just because it was me. And it's like, is it copyrighted content? It's like, I think you know why we're asking you to take down that video.
I think we sort of said as well that we would definitely have to change our format, because at the moment we literally record just sat in bed on a Sunday morning. Yeah. No one wants to see us like first thing on a Sunday morning with bed hair and
I feel like Morecambe and Wise.
So yeah, it would either look rather strange, or we would have to
record somewhere else.
Yeah, and then that would mean a change of name, and we'd have to really put a lot of thought into that change, I think. So
yeah, it just wouldn't be practical. We had our friend on last week as a little interview in person, and that was quite nice to have them on. But obviously, like, that's not going to draw anyone. Like, it's not a big name in board gaming industry that's going to draw people to the show. But
he'll be sad that you don't think he's a big enough name. He probably thinks he's quite big in the board game geek world when it comes to Battlestar Galactica.
Exactly. I'm sorry you weren't important enough. It's like, it'd be better not make sure they don't listen to this, because otherwise you'll break their heart. Oh yeah, we were on We're Not Wizards, you should listen to it. Really? How did I get hold of that? No, did I say that? I said something completely different show, something else entirely. Bye. In terms of, as I say, in terms of yourselves and the kind of the channel, as I've said this already, go and kind of check you guys out, because it's I don't know. Do you know what it is? It is a very, very, it's a gentle show, and it's not trying to be in your face, which you kind of like, because there are a lot of podcasts which is, hey, look at this, hey, look at that, and there's not a big kind of attention-seeking thing, which is pretty cool, which is what I kind of like about it. I do have a question for you though.
Okay.
And I want to say, okay, and you might have heard me ask this to other people, but in the situation where there is a zombie apocalypse in a pandemic dead of winter type style, and you ended up wandering the city streets together, and you are breaking away from the zombie horde, you run down an alley, you see an open door which appears to be like some kind of fire escape, and then when you walk into the room, one of you switches on the lights, and it turns out you're in a massively huge, well furnished but very heavily well stocked board game shop / cafe. It has new versions of games, it has old versions of games, it has first editions, it has third editions, it has every expansions. Right in the middle of the floor, right next to the rather stylish looking brushed iron metallic till, there is a shiny looking trolley which looks sturdy and steerable. It looks like it's got enough space in it to carry at least 3 games. Now, what games do you take with you? You're allowed 3. You can have any expansions you want, you can have any versions you want, but what 3 games do you take out into the zombie apocalypse with you? Safe in the knowledge that you will bump into people who are by themselves, or bump into entire communities. But when you're asked the question, do you want to play a board game, their answer is always going to be a resounding yes. Becky and Kelly, what do you pick?
I know what Kelly would pick.
Well, my first one would be Battlestar Galactica. Probably,
Okay.
Probably Pegasus.
What, the Pegasus expansion?
Yeah.
Okay, you can take that. That's fine. That's in the trolley.
What were you thinking, Becky?
I thought you would say
Battlestar
Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
I guess we'd have to throw in Star Realms. That's probably the game we've played the most together. Would we take Pandemic? Or would we be done with Pandemic?
My third one, I think I'd be putting up Carcassonne as an option.
Oh, okay. That's going in.
All right. Okay. Is so Star Realms? That's in the trolley with all the expansions as well.
Yeah, sure. We've not played them. The Zombie Apocalypse is as good a Simon as any to discover the expansions. But
You'll have plenty of time. And the third one, Carcassonne.
You want Carcassonne in there?
Yeah, that's what I would chuck in.
Oh, we sounded like a little bit of hesitation. Definitely
Well,
Carcassonne.
Kelly always wins Carcassonne, like every time wins Carcassonne. So again, I suppose I've got the Zombie Apocalypse to improve.
Exactly, and it'd be a good morale booster for me in the Zombie Apocalypse.
All right, yeah, we'll take Carcassonne as well then.
Yeah.
Exactly. We've lost everything. We've lost our home. You haven't lost Carcassonne though. Oh, you're right. That's great. Yeah, let's go and play. Yeah. Do you have the Bishop expansion? Yes, I do. Rivers? Yes, we've got that as well. Okay. You cheeky monkey. No, thank you for that. If people have listened and they're wondering where they can find you on the interweb nets, where can they find you?
We have got a beautiful website that's been lovingly crafted, and definitely is not just a blogger template one. But that is boardgamesinbed.com. So if you go there, that's got like all the. Whenever we put a podcast out, I always do a little write-up on there as well and put a link there. And then it's got links to all our social media as well. But that's the best place to find all our details.
Okay. And Twitter?
Twitter is @boardgames. Oh, yeah, @boardgamesinbed. Said that about a million times,
awesome. But... okay, that's cool. Well, what I'll do is I'll take all the links and I'll get any other links from you after the show. And I'll put them in the show notes, so we have notes to show. For anyone that hasn't listened to your podcast, can you give the very quick 45 seconds? I'll give you 7 seconds maybe, as to what they can expect when they tune in.
Oh, I've been pointing at. You can expect us talking about what we've played in the week, and you can expect us spending about 15 minutes discussing a random board game related topic.
And basically just our views and opinions on those.
Yeah.
So there you go. So that's Board Games in Bed with Becky and Kelly. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
This has been a lot of fun. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, and we still have no idea why, but we love each and every one of you for kind of tuning in. You can see us on Twitter at We're Not Wizards. You can find us on Facebook at We're Not Wizards. We're on YouTube now. It's We're Not Wizards Tabletop Podcast. If you like us a little bit more than that, and you'd like to maybe find us via Apple Podcasts, that would be brilliant. If you're going on to Apple Podcasts, drop us a subscription. Drop Board Games in Bed a subscription as well. If you like us even more and you'd like to give us a review, then, as we say, don't give us a 10, because that'll make us big-headed. But don't give us a 1, because that'll make us cry. Give us a 5, because it's average in the middle, and we are decidedly average. But the people that have not been average tonight is the rather fantastic, the rather amazing, the rather very, very interesting Becky and Kelly from Board Games in Bed. So once again, thank you very much, ladies, for giving me your time this evening and come along into our hovel of a show. I'm sorry, I should have known I would have cleaned up. I would have at least tucked my slippers under the bed and picked up my dressing gown, so I do apologise. But there's only 2 more things to do, and the first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, ladies?
No.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We like to have a little chat about the printed and pressed trees. I think is the best way to put it. And I stand up, and they like to snuggle under a duvet. So there we go. And the second thing to do is to say goodbye. So it is a goodbye from Kelly and Becky. So say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe. Roll 6s. Keep an eye out over the next couple of weeks. If you're listening just now, our competition for winning a month's free board game crate ends in about a week's time. So get on that. Check it out. It's free to enter, and there's a lovely prize at the end of it for one lucky person. But until the next time, goodbye. Say goodbye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.